Be honest, if I said Peugeot, what do you think? World Rally champions? French? A bit boring? Well, I've come to eastern France to put the record straight. This is a secret vault containing all the stars from Peugeot's history. And boy, what a history. It's a story of pioneering design, engineering breakthroughs and technological firsts. It's the story of unprecedented motorsport success and the race-bred road cars that resulted. And it's the story of a brand which is back on top of its game as motoring moves into a new era. Peugeot is the oldest company in the world making cars. It all began over 200 years ago when the Peugeot family converted a flour mill into a steel mill. The steel was used for saw blades, watch springs and lightweight crinoline skirts, which revolutionised 19th century fashion. Napoleon III's wife was a fan. Peugeot was also known for making coffee and pepper grinders, and they still make some of the best pepper grinders today. But it was Peugeot's expertise at building bicycles, themselves only a recent invention, that led them to build cars. In 1890, Armand Peugeot, using bike expertise, built a lightweight tubular steel chassis and combined it with a Daimler two-cylinder engine to create the first Peugeot car with a petrol engine. 4 years later, in 1894, a Peugeot won the Paris-Rouen horseless carriage competition. It was the world's first motor race. Armand was convinced that the future lay in automobiles, but his cousin, Eugène Peugeot, boss of the business, wasn't so sure. So Armand set up on his own. Armand was right, of course, and Peugeot have been building cars ever since. Pretty soon, Peugeot cars stopped looking like motorised bedsteads and started to look like something recognisable as a car. By 1912, Peugeot had opened a purpose-built factory at Sochaux, the world's oldest car factory. And on the racetrack, there was a race car with a four-cylinder, 16-valve, double overhead cam engine, technology that is still current today, over 100 years later. In 1929, Peugeot launched the 201, the first Peugeot to feature the now famous 3 digits with a 0 in the middle. The 201 was the first mass-produced Peugeot, and although it was the least expensive car in France, it was made in such an efficient way that the Sochaux factory became the most profitable in the world. 1929 was the same year as the Wall Street crash, leading to the Great Depression, which was terrible for a lot of people, but great for the Peugeot 201. Expensive cars were out, affordable cars were in, and the 201 was the most affordable car in France. Peugeot cleaned up. The 201 may have been cost-effective, but that didn't mean that it lacked innovation. And this 1931 201C was the first mass-produced car to feature independent front suspension to give it great handling for its time. Up front, there's an 1122cc engine developing 23 horsepower. And it'll hit 50 miles an hour. I don't think I'm brave enough to do 50 miles an hour in this because I like my modern comforts, airbags, ABS. There are 3 gears and you have to push the clutch twice to engage each gear. So it's quite a laborious process. And the brakes, yeah. Ooh. The innovations continued at Peugeot and cars started to be stylised for the first time, with elegant bodies, softer lines and sloping grilles. Over the decades, there have been rafts of interesting Peugeots, 204, 304, 504. But I'm going to jump to one of my favourite Peugeot eras, the 1980s and 90s. Peugeot had a string of great drivers' cars, the 309 GTI, 106 Rally, 306 Rally and the 306 GTI 6. And of course, best of all, the 205 GTI. As with many manufacturers, Peugeot had a tricky time in the 70s. They needed something new, they needed something profitable, they needed the 205. The 205 was an instant design classic, and adding fuel injection and calling it a GTI turned it into a mini icon that's still very much loved today.
A 205 GTI, best handling cars I think ever made. The way it goes, the way it stops. It's so light, it feels like it's part of the driver. I'm besotted with mine.
Once you've got one of these cars, they sort of get under your skin and you sort of grow with them, you know.
Peugeot sold over 5 million 205s, a record at the time. But for me, what the 205 really did was prove that a Peugeot could be a real driver's car. It also led to the Peugeot 205 T16 Group B rally car that kicked off a great run in motorsport for the company. The 205 won the Group B Rally Championship in 1986 and 87 before Group B was banned for being too wild. So Peugeot switched to Rally Raid and the 205 won the Dakar Rally in 1987 and 88. What a car. After that, Peugeot switched to the 405 and won the Dakar again in 1989 and 1990. Peugeot won Le Mans in 1992 and 93 and then again in 2009, this time with a diesel. Overall, Peugeot have won the World Rally Championship 5 times, the Dakar Rally 7 times, Le Mans 3 times, and held the record for the fastest Pikes Peak ascent. That is an impressive record, but it hasn't just been about sound and fury.
It's also been about beauty.
Some of the most beautiful Peugeots have been created by the long-running partnership between Peugeot and Italian design house Pininfarina. The relationship kicked off in 1960 with the Peugeot 404 and the particularly stylish Peugeot 404 Coupe and Cabrio.
More recently, Pininfarina was responsible for this, the 406 Coupe, an effortlessly elegant design.
Mainstream coupes have drifted out of fashion in recent years, replaced by more practical, but perhaps less beautiful cars.
I was a road tester on a car magazine when this car first came out, and I was blown away by how stylish it was. That, coupled to the silky smooth V6 engine, was a perfect combination.
So where is Peugeot today? Peugeot's 3008 SUV is a multi-award winner, having won over 65 international awards. And the 508 Fastback has been wowing fans with its sleek styling and interior, featuring Peugeot's innovative iCockpit, which gives drivers a whole new driving experience.
But the motor industry is changing, and Peugeot is at the forefront of that change.
The new 208 is a small car for the future, whatever that future may be, as cleverly you can have the same car as either a petrol, diesel or electric. And the all-new 2008 SUV will have the same choice. Then there's the 508 PSE concept car, a 400 brake horsepower hybrid engineered by Peugeot Sport, proving that more environmentally friendly cars don't need to be dull.
And there's this. The E-Legend is an electric car that you can drive, or it can drive itself.
With a cockpit that can be a control centre when you want it, or a place of relaxation when you don't.
The E-Legend is the shape of things to come, referencing the past whilst boldly looking at the future. Peugeot, boring? I don't think so.
Peugeot, from a historic past into a glowing future.